Hi everyone, I'm Donna Stellhorn, your practical astrologer, and today we are talking about the full moon. It's on February 1st. It's at 13 degrees of Leo. I'm going to do a short overview, and then we're going to go sign by sign, and there's going to be timestamps in this video so you can jump to your sign. This is quite an important full moon because this is the last full moon and the last 2 weeks before the Lunar New Year, the solar eclipse, and the new moon. So this is the time to be closing out the last 12 months. That is to look at how the year went, what worked, what didn't work, what do you want to carry forward, what do you want to leave behind, and basically so that you can have this fresh start in 2 weeks. Now, this full moon is on February 1st. It's in Leo, and it is sitting opposite Pluto, Mars, Sun, Venus, and Mercury. That's quite a lot. And so to give you kind of a picture of this, and let me show you here on the chart. Here's, of course, the moon, and here's all of our Aquarian planets right here. So to have that visual of seeing this one kind of lone hero standing there saying, I know what I want, I know what I believe in, I have this expression inside of me that needs to come out, whether that's an artistic expression or a musical expression, or maybe it is expressing yourself as a mom or a doctor or a lawyer or just as an individual. And then looking across and seeing this collection of people and who are either supporting you in this or maybe an obstacle to you doing this. And so it's you on the one side and these 5 planets on the other side. And the opportunity is to come together to find out, how this can all work together. Or there is that opportunity to stay separate and to be on the opposite sides of the teeter-totter. Now, of these planets, of course, Pluto and Mars are the most difficult. Sun, Venus, Mercury are pretty nice. And so 60% of this opposition is actually in your favor. And that would indicate it's good to compromise, to find out what the other person wants and see how that's in harmony with your own goals. But there are certainly challenges. There's definitely a little hill to climb here, and that's the Pluto and the Mars. Now, by orb, this moon is out of orb of that Pluto, but because the Pluto is making an aspect to the Mars pulls in that energy. Because the Sun is making an aspect to Mars and it's making an aspect to Pluto, it pulls those two in, and so forth. So how that can feel is that all of these things are against you, that there is so many obstacles right now. But when we look at the chart, when we break it down, not everything is an obstacle. There is some energy here that's a helping hand, something that's going to give you a hand up. So this is full moon energy, and so this is the culmination of a project. So what is possible here is that you have something that's ready to be posted or launched or be said to someone. And there's some hesitation because you don't know how well it's going to be received. You are feeling like that what if, after all the hard work you've done, after everything that you've been trying to pull this together, that you don't get the support or the recognition. And then you think to yourself, well, what was all this for? It's yet with the Leo moon, it's necessary to express yourself. It's necessary to put this out into the world. And this is the perfect time because it is the full moon. It is the culmination of the energies. And so that's where the Leo moon says, take a risk, take a chance, get outside of that comfort area that we all love to live in so much, and push that so that what is comfortable for you expands, so that things don't bother you, so that people can't irritate you because you have pushed against that. And the other thing to recognize here is the Leo moon energy is strong. There may not be 100% acceptance of what you're going to say or do, but that's okay because you know who you are. You are strong. And so just the fact that someone may say they don't like something or it's not their particular cup of tea or whatever, then it's not a reason to keep silent. If we look at this picture here, it's almost like a megaphone, one voice of that Leo moon out into the world. This is your time to shine. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing something huge. You may not be launching a business or, going on a book tour or something. This may be something where you're just standing up and stating something to your family, where you're standing up and saying something to your boss and your coworkers. This may be just you saying, this is me expressing myself about what I need and what I want. And this is the time to do it, even if you don't get 100% applause. All right, let's go sign by sign and see how this is going to manifest for your sign. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this chart and I'm going to change the house system to a 0 Aries chart. And this will give me predictions for Aries and Aries rising. And here is our full moon. And this is in your area of creativity as well as children. And so what's going on in this full moon may be more about your kids than about you. It may be that one of your kids is trying to express themselves and you're watching that expression not be universally received. And so you may be helping them, work on a school project or work on a hobby or something where they can hone it and find their audience. It's not necessary to be received well by everyone, and that's impossible in this world. But this says that if they do put something out there, they're going to be received well by most people. Now, of course, this could be you. You may be putting out the creativity. So if you're an actor, a singer, if you do something creative in the world, this is a time where you need to deliver, as they say. You need to post. You need to send it out there because this is your time to reach a larger audience. Now, if you are looking for a love relationship, we see that all of the potential suitors, potential lovers, are up here in your house of friendships and connections. This is a time to network and to go to hobby groups and go out to hiking groups, if it's warm enough where you are, so that you can meet new people. And in and amongst that crowd, you could find someone for a love relationship. Now, when it comes to existing relationships, we want to know the relationship between the ruler of the ascendant and the ruler of the descendant, so that's Venus and Mars. And here they are sitting on opposite sides of the sun. So what we have here is two people who can come together if they are sharing something enjoyable, if they're sharing their talents together, if they're doing something that is a partnership, a dual effort, then the two of you come together and there's harmony. But if you're both off doing your own thing, if one of you is trying to do everything, then there's not the connection. So remember that this 2 weeks, I almost said a month, but this 2 weeks is about coming together for a shared project. Now, when it comes to your money, we are very interested in the ruler of your second house. That is Venus and what Venus is doing. So, of course, Venus is sitting with the Sun and Mercury. That's excellent energy for communicating that you need more money, telling people how much your services are, asking your boss for a raise. All of these things are very good right now. The interesting energy is, of course, that opposition to the full moon, because the moon is what you need and Venus is what you want. And right now, there is some middle ground between those. And when you focus on that, when you focus on something that fulfills both your needs and your wants, you not only get that, but you can attract more. So this is to start with, to recognize the abundance that you do have. And that might not be actual cash. That might just be, closets full of stuff. But when you recognize that, what happens is like attracts like, especially with a full moon energy like this, and you bring in more. There's one more thing that I wanted to point out, and that is, of course, that Saturn, right now at 28 Pisces, is going to go into your own sign very, very soon. It's going to travel through Aries over a couple of years, and this gives you an opportunity to basically up your game. This is where you level up your abilities. Now, when you are doing that, of course, there's hard work involved. Saturn loves when we work hard. That is the same, like you would experience it in the gym. If you want to get stronger, you lift heavier weights, or you run farther, or you run longer. So the Saturn going into your own sign gives you opportunities to start your own business, to take a leadership role, to find your way in a relationship where that you could make it a permanent relationship. But those things take some effort, and the universe will set up the hurdles or resistance to make you stronger. So it's best to not resent those obstacles, but instead say each of these hurdles is making me better. And over the course of the next couple of years, you could become an authority in some area because of this Saturn. Okay, Taurus and Taurus rising, I'm going to rotate this chart so that we have now Taurus on the ascendant, and I'm going to find a pen. So there's our Taurus on the ascendant, and that puts this full moon right at the base of your chart. So that is lighting up your area of home and family, and on the opposite side, of course, is all the career energy. That means that there's a little bit of a conflict going on between how much time you get to spend at home and how much time you have to spend at work, or that you're wanting to be out in the world more, but there are things that are calling you back home, and some sort of compromise is needed in this area. Now, having the full moon light up this area also could mean that you are very busy at home, working on preparing for a move, unpacking from a recent move, or perhaps you're looking at acquiring a new place, buying a house, or signing a lease on an apartment. So there is a lot of activity about home. This could expand to your family, and so somebody in the family may also be doing something like this. Now, as I said in the intro, there's like 60% of this energy is very positive energy. You could even make an argument for making that Mars positive because it's so close to the sun. That would mean 80% of this energy is positive. And this also gives you some ability to do positive things out in the world. This is so much energy in the area of career. If you're looking for a job, if you are looking to expand your business, if you're looking for some recognition, it's quite easy to get at this time. So that is to move away from, whatever it is, the box that you're in, and tell the world what it is that you believe or can do or want to express to the world. That's what's going to bring you opportunities. Now, when it comes to relationships, we're, of course, very interested in what Venus is doing. That is your sign ruler. It is in the same sign with Mars and Pluto. They both co-rule your house of relationships. And yet Venus is running forward, and Mars and Pluto can't catch Venus. And so this may be that in your relationships, and this could also be your friendships or business partnerships, you're moving ahead, and you may have to hang back a little bit and allow your partner to catch up. This may be also that you have said, I'm going to run forward and work on, future stuff or marketing or something like that. And so you stay back here and you do the paperwork. So it may be an agreement between you, but it's creating more distance in the relationship. Now, it's all the same sign, so you do have a way to connect. But it's just a reminder that in a love relationship or a business partnership, that you want to look around and see if your partner is with you, if they're keeping up. Now, when it comes to money, we're very interested in what Mercury is doing in this chart. Mercury is making a conjunction with Venus, which is excellent for receiving gifts, receiving at least small sums of money, or receiving opportunities that can lead to larger amounts of money. You're also doing an inconjunct to Jupiter. That inconjunct can help you make adjustments and pivot to something that is going to make you more. So what I think is happening here is you may receive some sort of offer, something connected to your career, but it is not exactly what you're looking for. And so you have the option to walk away, but what would be better is to stay and negotiate for what you want. By doing that inconjunct energy actively, you can find some sort of, not even necessarily a compromise, but you can gain in areas that are unexpected to you, and they may find that they have almost everything that they are looking for as well. The only other thing I want to mention about this chart is that Saturn here at the very last degrees of Pisces is going to be moving into your 12th house. Now, Saturn in the 12th house can be seen as difficult because it is where the thing that you are feeling blocked about becomes more obscured. And so it's like you say to yourself, I'd like to move forward, but something's holding me back and I can't quite put my finger on it. Now, there's a different way to use this energy where you can actually turn that all into a strength. And that is to put a structure around all of the spiritual practices that you have, whether that be something as casual as taking a walk and listening to the birds, to actual structured meditation or journaling or some sort of magical practice. So the energy here says if you could put it on a schedule, if you can structure it, if you could maybe even move towards certification or some sort of professional level of this, then that Saturn gets used in a very positive way. And it doesn't come out into this fear that there's something hiding under the bed. The Saturn also here is going through an area that is rather boundaryless. And that's very interesting because when there are no boundaries on anything, like if someone says to you, you can be anything you want, you can do anything you want, it doesn't really help you get started because there are no boundaries to that. And so that would be a million different things you could start. But this says to put a structure around it. And once the structure is there, you'll be able to determine whether it's working for you or not. So going back to the spiritual idea, you may put a structure around meditation and say, all right, I'm going to meditate 1 hour every single day. And after a week, you say, you know what? Meditation's not for me. What I want to do is something more in motion. So I'm going to try yoga or Tai Chi. So doing something like that, putting that structure around it, you'll actually make much more progress than if you didn't. Okay, Gemini or Gemini rising, I've turned this chart so Gemini is on the ascendant, and that puts this full moon right in your house of communication and activities. This is your house of travel. Wow, it is big and huge. So it's quite possible you have some travel plans. Either you're working on the plans themselves or maybe working on the getting government documents or things like that, or you're actually on the road. The full moon down in the 3rd house could say that you are working on your vehicle, maybe looking around for a new vehicle, or perhaps you are doing some driving for a living, which if that's the case, if you're in some sort of logistics or delivery, you could be extremely busy during this time. Now, this also suggests that Gemini or Gemini rising, you may be doing something very active in school, like taking some sort of standardized tests or testing for a professional license or getting some sort of credentials. This is that there's a lot of paperwork and that maybe you're nervous about how that paperwork is going to come out because we have this doing an opposition to 2 difficult planets, but we also have 3 very positive planets. So it's likely the paperwork's going to come out okay. Likely you'll get it into the right hands, but you do have to get past that procrastination of the fear of not doing it correctly. And then also during this time, you may have more interaction with relatives who are like in-laws, grandparents. If you're the grandparent, you may be interacting more with grandkids during this time. There's a lot of activity and communication, people coming together, trying to find ways to help each other. So that I think that, and even that could have some travel involved. Now, when it comes to relationships, we're very interested in what the ruler of the ascendant is doing with the ruler of the descendant. So the ruler of your ascendant, of course, the ruler of your sign, I should say, is that Mercury. Let me try again. So is Mercury. Yeah, you would think after this many years I'd learn how to draw. And at least a square. And Jupiter. And they're making an inconjunct. So an inconjunct energy is this energy of compromise. It is an energy of making an adjustment, of letting go of something so you can take hold of something else. It is different than an opposition. In an opposition, 2 people are coming and trying to find a meeting of the minds where you can find a win-win. An inconjunct's not necessarily a win-win. An inconjunct is letting go of something so that you can support the other, or vice versa. And so that is that you can't have dessert and go snorkeling at the same time. So if you're the one that wants to go snorkeling, maybe you wait on that and you have dessert. But then I guess maybe you have to wait before you go swimming. That's what they used to say to us when we were kids. Or that you do convince your partner, let's go snorkeling, then we can have dessert. But you cannot do them both at the same time. So this inconjunct is saying that between you and your partner, or you and the person that you're dating, there's some sort of compromise. Something has to be let go of so that you can support the other, or you have to convince them to let go of what they're holding on to so they can support you. Now, when it comes to your money, we look at the moon, but I do want to talk a little bit about Jupiter. Jupiter is still in the sign of Cancer, and that's going to continue until June. And that means that you have luck and expanded opportunities still for months to come. And yet sometimes it's easy to forget it when we're dealing with these longer transits. Now, Jupiter is not this automatic luck that I know lots and lots of people think it is. It does need something like a little bit of kindling to get it going, or in this case, being a water sign, you have to make a little bit of a channel so that water can flow. So, but that said, it means that if you can get something going, and this, in this case, in a full moon, to launch something, then you can start to see a trickle that ends up being a river of liquidity, perhaps, or revenue, or some other money thing. So I just wanted you to keep that in mind, because you're past the halfway point on this transit. And so you still, though, have months yet to come where you can access that Jupiter to expand revenue sources, to expand the money that you're getting from if you have a limited number of sources, and also to open up your eyes to new potential money outside of this Jupiter transit. Okay, Cancer or Cancer rising, I've turned this chart to put Cancer on the ascendant. And of course, this is a full moon chart, and we would look for the moon anyway, but the moon is your sign ruler. And that moon in Leo is sitting right in a money house for you. This is also sitting opposite your area of resources from others. And this brings up this sort of dynamic of wanting to do it yourself, but also understanding that you can't do it all yourself, that you do need to interact and connect with others. And so sometimes people don't want to do that because, they'll owe favors, or they can't necessarily trust that the other person's going to support them. That's understandable. So it's necessary to come together in the center, because it's an opposition, and find that middle ground, to find that win-win. I don't know if I can draw an opposition here. Opposition, not so easy to draw, so mine's a little lopsided. What I want to point out, which I did in the opening, is that 60% of the planets that this moon is opposing are positive. And we could make a case for Mars being positive too, because it's conjunct the sun. So that means 80% of the time you could receive a positive answer for requests for help, requests for resources, any sort of requests at all, really. If you can find a way for the other person to win too, then you're likely to come together for a win-win 100% of the time. But even if you can't find some way they can win, you still have a 60 to 80% chance you're going to get a yes. So this would be a good time to ask to present your offers, present your sales letters, or to be telling others what it is you want in the way of a job or other sources of income. So when it comes to relationships, and this is not just love relationships, but also friendships and business partnerships, we want to know the relationship between the ruler of the ascendant and the ruler of the descendant, or your sign ruler, which is the moon, right here, and Saturn. And at first glance, these two don't look like they are talking with each other. So one is in late degrees of Pisces, the other is mid degrees of Leo. But what they're doing is they're doing an aspect called a sesquiquadrat. A sesquiquadrat is drawn like a square and a semi-square. And a sesquiquadrat is about making continual adjustments. Now, you can think of that in a very fluid sort of way. That would be like a person who's skiing, and they're skiing around obstacles. And so they know that they cannot go just in a straight line because they're going to hit a rock or a tree. This is about, moving around the obstacles. So, and when we're skiing, we're not thinking of them as being this big drudgery of having to move around the obstacles. We think it's actually part of the fun. So if you're in a relationship, then if you could start to think of this as, all right, now this person wants to do something when I don't want to do it. Let's do some negotiations. That's part of the fun. They want to watch a different program than I want to watch. How can we compromise? Maybe there's something we could watch together that's different than those other two things. That could be fun. Like looking for the more pleasant way of doing this energy. Now, this also, though, is about that sense of the Leo moon, which needs that love, needs that admiration, but maybe is a little hesitant to say it. And so it may be that your partner doesn't really understand what it is that you need. So this Leo moon is about expression. And so it is time to express what it is you need. It may not get a positive result right out of the gate, but once you've planted that seed can grow, and that person could start to understand what it is that they can do to make this relationship better. There's one more thing I wanted to point out about this chart, and I lost my pen. And that is that Saturn here at that 28 degrees of Pisces is just about to go into Aries. Now, Saturn is sitting very high up on your chart. Saturn is about being an authority, being an expert. Now, you can take that role, or you can allow everybody else to have that role. And so as Saturn crosses that uppermost part of your chart, you can take on the role of the authority. That means that you could get a business going, you could move up in your career, you could gain an audience. Now the whole transit of this is going to take about 2 years or more. And so if this is not something you're doing in the next 2 weeks, but it is something to be aware of as Saturn crosses that line into the sign of Aries, you're going to feel different. You're going to feel like it is time to take that leadership role and all the responsibility that goes with it. And you're going to recognize over the course of this 2 years that you are more than capable of doing that. Okay, Leo or Leo rising, I have turned the charts so Leo's on the ascendant, and that puts that Leo full moon right here, of course, in your first house. It is sitting opposite all of this Aquarian energy in your house of relationships, partnerships, and collaborations. Now, the Leo moon here being a full moon marks that you're at the halfway point of your lunar year. So this is a big harvest time. That is that all of the stuff that you've been working on for the last 6 months, now that the things have grown, they have matured, and it's time for you to start reaping the benefits. And that can mean people owe you favors, or they have made promises, or that they have said that they will collaborate with you or give you a helping hand. This is a time where you're going to begin to connect with those people and get them to follow through. Now, the harvest period for you is going to last a full 3 months. You don't need to rush this on this full moon, but this is a time where it's starting. And so the first step for you is to start to think about what it is that you would like and who might give that to you. Additionally, this is really good energy for relationships, and relationships of all kinds. Because there are 5 planets on the other side of this Leo full moon, that means that if you get a no, just move on to the next person and the next person, because before you get to that 5th person, you're going to get a yes. This is a time where if you're meeting someone new for a love relationship, you have lots of options. But if you're already in a love relationship, this is to remember that when you come together, you can come together in a very harmonious way and share the burden, not having to do everything yourself. Now, I've turned the chart so Virgo's on the ascendant. So these are predictions for Virgo and Virgo rising. And here is that full moon in your 12th house. You know, we often talk about the 12th house as the hidden house, and so it feels like it's unseen. But that couldn't be further from the truth in this particular case, because this full moon is rising in the chart. You see, this is the line of the horizon. It's a little off because there's so many planets here in the 6th house. And so this moon is rising in the sky. And you know how big the moon is when it's on the horizon? Because it gets magnified by the atmosphere. The moon can be huge. And so that is that you are very, very noticeable at this time. Now, you may not notice other people noticing you because this moon is in your 12th house. You may be oblivious to the compliments you're receiving, the admiring glances you're receiving, the pats on the back that people are trying to give you, but you're just moving too quickly. So recognize, maybe even pause for a moment to listen, but recognize that your star is rising. Now, on the other side of this full moon is, of course, all those planets in your area of work and health and daily routines. So here are you on one side, perhaps doing spiritual work, maybe doing art, maybe just taking some time for yourself. And here's your job, the people in your life, everybody who wants and needs your attention, and they want it right now. And so this could be an extremely busy time at work. This could be a very busy time with just things that you have to do at home. Maybe you're doing much more meal prep than usual, or you're taking on extra kids by babysitting. There's something that's going on that's making you very busy. Now, this is also very good about looking at your protocols and your systems and your procedures and finding ways to improve how you get things done during the day. This is that you have new ideas all the time about how to streamline or automate things. This could be a time where you find out ways to cut the amount of time you're at your job and still get the same paycheck, where you are being more efficient and more effective. So then when it comes to relationships, of course, we're looking at the ascendant ruler along with the descendant ruler and co-ruler. Now, Mercury's not making an aspect with Neptune, but that Mercury is making an inconjunct to Jupiter. Now, this inconjunct energy means that the two of you are a little bit out of sync right now. And that is that you both want to do different things or get stuff done, but your priorities are different. Or that you're trying to do incompatible things like go snorkeling and have dessert at the same time. Those two things can't happen together, and so something has to be put off. Now, it's also possible because you're so incredibly busy that you're just too busy to be paying attention to the relationship, and so therefore the inconjunct energy happens. You're normally very present, but right now you can't be. Or this could be that your partner is absent for some reason, and so they can't be present at this time. Now, all of this energy is just for this 2-week period, so you're going to find that it clears up pretty quickly. But the thing to realize is that you can't find an opposition type of compromise. An opposition type of compromise has one person giving up a little bit and the other person giving up a little bit, and then the resources are shared. In an inconjunct compromise, one or the other person has to give up their thing entirely. And that's what I mean. You cannot have dessert and go snorkeling at the same time. You have to give up one of those two things. And so that is what's going on in the relationship, that there's some sort of giving up energy for a compromise that has to happen. And so you can spot what that is and then say, okay, I'll be the one who gives up my side, or you can ask them to give up whatever it is that they're clinging to. Now, when it comes to money, we want to know what the ruler of your second house is doing, and that is Venus, which is sitting amongst this choir of energy in your house of work. This means is there's a lot of money opportunities, but they are directly tied to the amount of effort that you do or the number of people that you hire. With a strong sixth house like this, you could find good employees, contract workers to help you out. It's all, of course, in Aquarius, where it naturally is in your chart, but Aquarius does rule technology, so it's also a possibility of outsourcing some of the jobs. But those are the things, when you think about them and you implement them, those are the things that are going to bring you money during this time. There's one more thing I wanted to point out about this chart, and that is Saturn is going to be going into the sign of Aries, and then we are going to spend a long time, about 2 years, talking about how it's going to structure resources from others for you. Now, resources from others includes business income, passive income sources, but also help and assistance in whatever it is you need. The 8th house also represents things like lottery, royalties, residuals, stock investments, and passive income sources. Now, Saturn's initial job is to restrict something, to hold you back, so that you will push forward, get stronger, and then become the authority. Basically, it puts something heavy in your path. You push that thing hard enough and long enough that at some point you're able to pick up the object and toss it aside. And now you no longer have a block. You are now the authority. So as Saturn goes into Aries, which it's going to do very soon, you want to start paying attention to what it is that you can become the authority in when it comes to resources from others. And so that can be that you start studying about investing or having your own business or ways to win the lottery. The energy here will start out tough, Remember, this is a 2-year aspect, but over the time, you could really gain because Saturn is slow growth wealth. So I've turned the charts, so Libra's on the ascendant, so these are predictions for Libra and Libra rising, and this puts this full moon in your house of friendships and community, also technology, and so that is where the spotlight is for you. And so this may be a time where you need to go back into a group or get more active in a group you belong to. Perhaps you may want to take a leadership role and take charge of some aspect of the group. This may also be that you're delving into more technology, learning new platforms or new types of software. This could mean that you are automating your systems in some way. And when it comes to friendships, this is where you could really shine, where you take the lead on some enjoyable activities, or you bring the group together to have a party. Now, this moon, of course, is sitting opposite all of this energy here in Aquarius, in your area of creativity and risk-taking, as well as romance. So romantic possibilities are very strong with this chart. It is something to consider if you're looking for a love relationship, because you have more than one choice during this time. That said, if you're not looking for a love relationship, think in terms of creativity. You probably have more creative ideas than you've had in a while, more things than you could possibly do, more things to try to implement and bring in your vision into reality. This is also about your kids, and we see an enormous amount of attention and activity on children during this time. Now, if you've been doing something around having kids, this could bring a breakthrough for you, some sort of signs that say, yes, you're heading in the right direction. Of course, with your kids in the world, this is that they are demanding a lot of attention, and you're trying to weigh out how much time and energy you need for yourself and how much you're going to give to your kids. And the ideal situation is to split it, to find a way that each side compromises a little bit, and then you can find the win-win. Now, when it comes to your money, we have some very interesting energy. Of course, we are looking for the ruler, or in your case, rulers of your house of money, and that is Pluto and Mars. And so they're both in the same sign, and that gives you a very unified purpose right now. You may be jumping from task to task, but the ultimate goal you are very focused on. You're moving towards it in a very deliberate fashion and at a good pace. Now, the challenge for you is to make it more playful, to make it more fun. Yes, you're determined, but if you bring the joy into it, if you bring the fun into it, then you're going to find you get a much better response from your audience. The additional thing is to remember that you have more than one option, but they all stem from getting out of your comfort zone. The 5th house is about speculation, not taking foolhardy risks, but to weigh the consequences and then take an action that you wouldn't normally do. When you do that, your world expands and opportunity comes with it. Now, there's one more thing that I wanted to point out, and that is that Saturn is going to cross into the sign of Aries, and that means that no matter when you were born, Libra, it is at some point over this next 2 years going to sit opposite your sun. So long ago, about 14 years ago, Saturn was actually in Libra and it was sitting on your sun, and you had all of these ideas and new things that you started. And over the last 14 years, you've been working on those things. Now we're at the height of the energy, and it's time for you to think of whether you're going to harvest this, harvest that, harvest everything, harvest nothing. So it's time to take your skill set and apply it to whatever it is that you want. So if you have lots of skills in a certain area, that doesn't mean that you are locked into a certain industry. This Saturn is going to give you many opportunities for taking a leadership role or taking more responsibility or stepping up to be the authority. Now, with this also, we get very strong relationship energy for you for the next 2 years, not for serial dating, but for a long-term relationship. And this is not the easiest of aspects. It says to work on the relationship, to really understand each other, but a really strong relationship can be bonded over the course of this 2 years. Okay, Scorpio or Scorpio rising, I have turned the chart, so Scorpio is on the ascendant. We see then that the full moon is right at the top of your chart. That's like the full moon at the highest point in the sky. What is more noticeable than that? How many of us stop and look at the moon, even though the full moon happens every month? We look at it, we wonder about it, we talk to it. That is that energy of being noticed, of being seen. And that's the energy that you have. Now, naturally, Scorpio is a little hesitant to be seen, unless your planets skew towards the Libra or the Sagittarius. You then might go out and say, it's okay if I'm seen. But if you've got a lot of really strong Scorpio in your chart, it's likely you want to be the wisdom behind the throne, or, the person in the shadows. Now, this moon being so elevated is great for getting a new job, great for getting recognition, great for finding a bigger audience, but it may not be the most comfortable thing for you. And so therefore we have this opposition here of all of these Aquarian planets sitting in your house of home and family. These are the people you know already. These are the surroundings you're familiar with. This is what is, you think, the antidote for what it is you're doing. But what would be better is to take your creations, the things you're thinking about doing, your goals, and discuss it with a trusted family member first. That puts it out to the universe, and then you get much more help on it. Now, when it comes to love relationships, we want to know what the ruler of the ascendant is doing with the ruler of the descendant. So you have co-rulers, that is Pluto and Mars, and they are sitting fairly close together in the same sign. Now, your descendant ruler is Venus, and it is also in Aquarius. So we have a lot of energy here that's very similar. The interesting thing is that the Venus is moving faster than the Mars and Pluto can. And so it almost feels like your person is running away, that you want to sit down and talk about something, but they're too busy, they are avoiding you, etc. And yet everything here is in the same sign. Once you get them talking, you'll find out you have a lot more common ground than you thought. So this energy says to be mindful that you might have to have a communication before you actually get down to what it is that you want to say. Now, when it comes to your money, we've been talking about Jupiter for a while for you. It's, of course, still sitting in your 9th house. But what I think is interesting about this chart is it's making an inconjunct to Mercury. So the difference between that Jupiter and Mercury sometimes can be looked at as Mercury does the small details, Jupiter does the big picture. Or Jupiter does the research and Mercury talks about it. So here we have an inconjunct. An inconjunct energy is a different type of compromise than an opposition. In an opposition, two people come together and each one gives up a little bit of something so there can be harmony. But in an inconjunct, one side has to completely give up what they are doing to accommodate the other side. And that is, and I've said this before, you can't eat dessert and go snorkeling at the same time. You have to postpone or even give up one of those. So what the deal here is, when it comes to your money, is that you have to let go of the research and the ideas to implement. Or you need to let go of the implementation so you can go back and test your results and analyze the data. You cannot do this right now in real time. It says that you have to let go of one to do the other. Now, this also could be that you work really well at home. That's that Mercury. But you should be traveling and meeting people. That's the Jupiter. Can't do both of those at the same time. Or this is that you are following the family tradition, and that's the most important. Or, and that would be that Mercury in the 4th house, or the Jupiter, that you're following a higher calling, and you have a mission, and so that's the energy that you are pursuing or following. And so that's where, when you say to yourself, I don't know how to make more money, you have to figure out first what you're needing to let go of. And then you're going to start to see where that money is. Now, there's one more thing I wanted to point out about this chart, and that is that Saturn is on the move, and very soon it's going to go into the sign of Aries, where it's going to spend a couple of years. Now, as it leaves your 5th house, it is actually already brought you through getting better at expressing yourself, which you are, helping you hone your artistic abilities, maybe helping you have a better boundaries with your kids. Now, all of that's going to shift, and the attention then comes to your work, your health, and your daily routines. Now, Saturn is much happier in a 6th house than it would be a 5th house, but it's still going to be in a sign that is not so comfortable with the 6th house. That's Aries. So now, of course, you live with Aries in your 6th house, so you know what this energy is like. But when Saturn is there, it says to structure it, to put it into a schedule, to follow a protocol, follow a checklist. So it's asking you to take the different things that you do and do them on a professional level. So that's not just, oh, maybe I will meal prep, but that's meal prep in an assembly line. Or that is not, oh, maybe I'll go to the gym. It is hiring the personal trainer and following through. So the Saturn's going to allow you to get serious about things that are going to ultimately really help your life. Okay, Sagittarius or Sagittarius rising, I have turned this chart so that we see Sagittarius on the ascendant, and then we get that full moon up in your 9th house. That's your house of travel and exploration. It's also about education, legal matters, and probably most importantly, your faith, your belief. And this is a Leo full moon, so it's a belief in yourself, a belief that you can overcome whatever obstacles there are, that you are going to persevere. Now, of course, lighting up your house of travel could mean that you are going somewhere. You have an awful lot of planets in your house of logistics, and so this may be a time where you're planning the trip, maybe not actually going yet, but getting all of the hotel and other accommodations all set up. This is in your houses of education, and so this could indicate an awful lot of homework going on or some sort of test that you have to take. This is energy around legal matters. If you are doing a legal matter, there is a ton of paperwork, and this chart alone would indicate that it's probably a good idea to settle, to find some sort of win-win, to compromise. Now, I'm not looking exactly at your chart, so if you are in a legal matter, you may want to have your astrologer take a look at that to see if that's the case for you. Now, when it comes to love relationships or business partnerships or any sort of really close friendships, we want to know what Jupiter, your sign ruler, is doing with Mercury, which is the descendant ruler. And interestingly enough, they're making an inconjunct. Now, I say it's interesting because an inconjunct, like an opposition, is about compromise, but it's a different type of compromise. An opposition compromise is that you both give up maybe a percentage of something so that the two of you can come together in agreement. But in an inconjunct style of compromise, one side has to give up everything so that the other side can have what they want. Now, I know that doesn't sound so great, but in a lot of situations, we're not so attached to what it is that we were asking for in the first place, or even more so, when they describe what they want to have happen, we say, hey, that does sound pretty good, and so we go along with it. But this is something to keep in mind, that you have two things where you cannot actually come together to compromise. One of you has to set down what it is that they want so that the two of you can have this experience together. Now, when it comes to your money, you pull money from Saturn, and boy, Saturn is big in the news right now because Saturn is finally getting ready to go into the sign of Aries. I am looking forward to this because I think that Saturn has some big plans for Aries energy. With Saturn in Pisces, it's been a lot of trying to structure that has no structure, trying to put something in a box that has no form. When Saturn goes into Aries, Aries is all about just taking action, action for action's sake, getting something initiated, getting it started. And Saturn says, all right, now that it's started, what can we build on? You know how when you're procrastinating on something, how good it is just to hit a timer for 1 minute and do that task for 1 minute. First of all, you find that you can get a lot done in 1 minute. It's surprising. But the second is that once you've done the minute, then you add a second and so forth, and pretty soon the project's done. Well, that's your next 2 years. You will be able to set that timer, do that 1 minute, and then either continue or say, oop, all I needed was 1 minute. So this Saturn is going into your area of creativity, risk-taking, speculation, as well as romance. And so all of these things are going to be enhanced by this Saturn, where at first it feels like there's this terrible obstacle. Then you jump over the obstacle and you realize that there is no obstacle that can stop you. So over these next 2 years, if you feel like you've been holding back in the area of love or creativity or self-expression, you're going to start to inch forward at first and then run forward at the end, by the end of this transit, to show the world what you can do. Okay, for Capricorn or Capricorn rising, I've turned the chart so Capricorn is on the ascendant, and that is going to connect us to your planet ruler, which is the big news these days because Saturn is going to leave the sign of Pisces and finally go into the sign of Aries. And it's not just changing signs, it is crossing the 0 Aries point, which is the beginning of the zodiac. And so this is more than just a change, this is a reset. This is where you get to shift something so profoundly that it changes every part of your life. Now, of course, that change is not happening in this 2-week period. It's probably changing over the course of the next 2 years. So this is a time while it's still in Pisces for a little while longer to start to visualize or continue to visualize what it is you want in the future, and do so in detail, write it down, tell a trusted friend about it, send it up to the universe. The other thing that I want to point out about this Saturn, as it crosses into Aries, it's going to cross into your 4th house, where it's going to spend about 2 years. Now, Saturn in the 4th house puts a structure around home and family. From a professional standpoint, that could be going into real estate, going into construction, doing something that is a home business, or doing some sort of business that is always operated out of the home, like interior design, or, well, I know interior designers can have offices, but you're going into other people's homes, or a babysitting service, or something like that. Now, the Saturn, though, crossing that angle and going into the 4th house also has you structuring aspects around family. And that is, if you are giving to family members, maybe now you're putting some boundaries on it. Or perhaps people are asking you, we need you to take care of us, and you need to put some boundaries on that. This could be about structuring schedules with siblings to visit elderly parents, or about scheduling with your contractor when the house is going to be done. And I have to point out too that while this Saturn is crossing into your 4th house, it will be opposite your 10th house. And so you may find that new job opportunities are around, that they're going to come with lots more responsibility, not as big a paycheck as you like, and so some negotiation is going to be needed. So then when we look at this full moon, it is lighting up your area of resources from others. This is your house of money. It is chock full right now. This means you have multiple sources of income that are possible, multiple sources of where you could receive gifts or require some sort of help from someone else. The challenge here is that full moon in the 8th house, and that is you need to ask for what you want, because if you don't, you're going to get a lot of stuff that you don't want. Now, this is an opposition, and an opposition has a point in the middle of compromise. If you say you want this, large sum of money, the other person says they can't give you that sum of money, then you find some middle ground and you end up with some extra money and they end up not giving everything they had. So this is a type of win-win situations that you're looking for. When you find those, you're going to find that they are centered around financial matters and benefits to yourself. So this is a very good time to be asking everyone for help, assistance, money, anything that you're looking for. Now, when it comes to relationships, we are looking at how Saturn interacts with the moon, the ruler of the descendant. And while it doesn't look like they're making an aspect, they're actually making a sesquiquadrate. So a sesquiquadrate it looks like a square with a semi-square. So it's 90 degrees plus 45 degrees for 135 degrees. And as difficult as that little symbol was to draw, as difficult it is to be even thinking about, it is that difficult in real life. The sesquiquadrate is about making continuous adjustments. Now, the most positive version of that, I think, would be like skiing down a mountain and, sliding from one side to another so you avoid hitting rocks and trees. The difficulty is if you feel like you should be able to go in a straight line and that the trees and rocks need to jump out of your way. That's when the trouble happens. And so you're in a period of time where you need to make a lot of adjustments. Now, a Leo moon doesn't necessarily like to compromise at all. And that's not your specific moon, that's that full moon. So all of us are not going to be in a compromising mood. But to gain something in your love relationship, to gain a true partnership, to find somebody who's really going to help you, you have to do that sesquiquadrate, which is continually adjust. And that could manifest as the person saying, yes, let's meet on Friday at 7. Oh, no, let's make it Saturday at 6. Oh, could it be Sunday at 4? It constantly has you adjusting, and that's where you can continue with this energy until this energy lines up better, which it will in the future. So Aquarius and Aquarius rising, I've turned the chart to put Aquarius on the ascendant. That puts this full moon in your house of other people, partnerships and collaborations, and that gives you an extraordinary first house of all of these planets, which means 1, you're very noticeable at this time. 2, you can have many more opportunities than usual, opportunities for leadership role, opportunities to take on more responsibility, opportunities to be seen and to be heard, to put your stuff out into the world. So this is an excellent time. You don't really want to waste it. This is full moon energy, and so you want to take the things that are finished and ready to go and put them out into the world. No reason to hold on to these any longer. This is also very strong energy for relationships, but relationships are going to require some sort of compromise, because between these two, this single moon and this large group of energies, there is a middle point, a middle ground. And so that means that if you have felt something was out of balance or even unfair, this is your opportunity to discuss it, to put it back into balance, to put it back into alignment. Now, the energy is so interesting here because the majority of planets are in your own sign and the full moon is in the opposite sign. And yet I'm discussing this as though you are that full moon. Well, the difference here is you get to walk in someone else's shoes. That is, you have really strong empathy during this time. You are able to read people very easily. You're able to see what their motivations are, and that can help you in your relationships. Now, when it comes to your money, of course, we always check in with Neptune, which is now in Aries, and is sitting in your 3rd house, giving you many ideas, and possibly if you do some sort of art, different mediums. If you do some sort of writing, you're using a new vocabulary. This is also ruled by that Jupiter And Jupiter here is in your house of work, which would indicate that money does come directly from your efforts. Don't scrimp on that. But the thing that I really wanted to point out, let me go grab it, is this Saturn. Now, Saturn has been traveling through your second house of money for more than 2 years. And it has taken you through step by step, shown you each block and obstacle, having you through effort shrink those down to just a hurdle that you can leap over. And that is that over the course of these 2 years, you probably handle your finances better than you did before. You probably have some sort of structure now that you place your finances in. And even though you don't necessarily enjoy it, you are finding some benefits in being more structured around money and how much stuff you have. So what we have is that later this month, Saturn is going into the sign of Aries, and it is going to start traveling through your area of communication and thinking process, contracts and writing, teaching and activities, everything from dance to skateboarding. So Saturn brings its ability to become an expert into this area. So you've been working for 2 years to become the expert at handling your money. Now you're going to become the expert at positive thinking, as well as how to journal, how to express yourself on paper through writing, how to figure out if a contract is good enough to sign. So the Saturn, of course, is going to bring you first obstacles that seem insurmountable, little Mount Everest that you have to climb up. Then these mountains will shrink into more hills where it's just you kind of huff and puff as you're running up and down the hills. And then it shrinks it down further to a hurdle you can step over. That's what Saturn's purpose is. If we lean in and do the work, then things get better. And one more thing I wanted to point out about this chart is when we have so many planets in the sign of Aquarius, which we do from time to time, this is definitely the time to launch. Even if you're not ready to launch whatever it is, the project or the music or whatever, at least start talking about it and start to build your audience. This is a great chart for building an audience, a great chart for finding a lot of people who see the world as you do. For Pisces or Pisces rising, I have turned the chart so we have Pisces on the ascendant, and that puts this full moon lighting up your area of work, health, and daily routines. It's sitting opposite all of this Aquarius energy, which is in your area of spirituality, intuition, and escapes. So starting with that full moon, there's a lot of attention right now on your job, on what you're doing at work, who you're working with. This could also be about what you're consuming in the way of for diet. It is how much you are exercising. And the opposition here says that there are new ways of doing things, that you see those ways, you may adopt one of those ways. And that is pulling you out of a stuck position or a position that's too comfortable and getting you into motion again. This opposition can be very helpful. And as I said at the beginning, this opposition is 60% positive. And in fact, if we count that the Mars is very close to the sun and receiving that positive energy, this could be 80% positive. So at this point, the odds are so in your favor for launching something, especially a work project or launching a new idea or getting a business started. This is a time, too, with so many planets in the 12th house that what you put out on social media could be bigger than you expect. 12th house is about having no boundaries. And so what happens is something can get away from you. It can become too big. By too big, I mean viral. And so that's the benefit or the warning that you have when you're putting stuff out into the world. Now, the interesting dynamic going on in your relationships, that would be friendships, mentorships, partnerships, all types of love relationships. We're looking at the ruler of the ascendant. You have two rulers, Jupiter and Neptune, as well as the ruler of the descendant, and that would be this Mercury, which is right here, sitting outside of that ascendant. It's making an inconjunct to that Jupiter. Now, an inconjunct energy is that you have to find some way to come together, but you can't do it by the typical opposition type of compromise. In an opposition compromise, you both give up something to come together. You both say, all right, I will take 10% less and then we will have enough. Or to do the math accurately, you'd each take 50% less and then there's plenty of money. The inconjunct energy is different. Then inconjunct energy says that the compromise has to happen, but it happens because one side or the other lets go of something. Because these are going to be two unmixable things. These are two things that don't get along together. That is, whatever it is your partner's wanting to do and you want to do. Like, you can't take fire breathing class and go to snorkeling class at the same time. I know that one's a pretty far-fetched. But as I was saying earlier, you can't have dessert. You can't eat dessert while you're snorkeling. And that sort of energy is what this inconjunct is about, is how can I take what it is that I'm really holding on to, really gripping onto and being stubborn about, what can I let go of so that my partner then says, oh yes, this is perfect. Now everything's right. Or how can I persuade my partner to let go of whatever they're holding on to? So an inconjunct energy can start out uncomfortable, but if you keep this in mind, we're trying to mix two unmixable things and one of us has to let go, then you can generally find an agreement pretty quickly. Now, when it comes to your money, we look at Mars and what Mars is doing. And while Mars is in Aquarius, it is sitting in your 12th house. Now, that's actually a high energy aspect because Mars is rising in the chart, and that means that you have more energy than usual, especially for money-making activities. So that is, if you're starting an Etsy store or something like that, you can do all the back office done and the product's up in record time. If you're applying for some sort of job, then you can get more resumes out there, again, in record time. So while Mars travels through your 12th house, that expression comes from within. You're able to motivate yourself and not need to wait for someone else to motivate you. Now, I will say there is a caveat that it can make it a little hard to sleep, and especially since there are 4 other planets in that 12th house, you may be having lots of dreams. You might look at doing something like lucid dreaming or dream journaling or something in that nature. Also, having such a strong 12th house, there's an inclination to try to escape, even just for a few minutes of listening to something mindless and just letting go. It's not a great idea because it does cost you some really interesting opportunities. A better use for that energy would be to do something in the spiritual realm, such as yoga or Tai Chi, or to consider doing journaling or a meditation to hang feng shui cures and things like that. So the Mars here, well, it's not going to be here forever. It's going to leave this house in less than 2 months. This is still giving you very bright energy, very sparkling energy for getting what you want. You just need to take the action first behind the scenes and then showing the world. And then there's one more thing I wanted to point out about this chart, and that is Saturn is going to go into the sign of Aries, and it's going to sit in your 2nd house, and it's going to do that for 2 years. And you've probably already heard Saturn's about restriction. And so, of course, you might be thinking, this is my house of money. I don't want it restricted. But there's more to Saturn than just restriction. Saturn is strict because it's trying to make you better. Saturn is trying to put an obstacle in your way so that you will overcome the obstacle. And by doing so, you become stronger. So the energy here is about structuring your finances, about paying really good attention to your finances, about taking them seriously, about doing them at a level that would be considered professional level. So the Saturn actually going through the 2nd house is a slow growth wealth aspect, because by the end of this transit, you're going to look back and say, wow, I didn't know I could accomplish so much. I didn't know I could earn so much. But the beginning part can be hard, especially if you resist the hurdles that the universe is putting out there for you. So the best advice I have for you is to go in a very structured way, put on the accountant's hat and focus on how to do spreadsheets, how to acquire assets, even if you don't have the cash, how to find the assets that are really going to grow, how to turn some of your stuff into cash so that you can buy more assets, and so forth. Take your money very seriously, and your money is going to pay dividends like you wouldn't believe. But if you ignore the lessons, if you fight against the lessons, you're going to find that those obstacles are pretty hard to climb over. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I teach classes, and there is a list of classes. There are links in the description, but also if you get my newsletter, you'll find links there and updated announcements. I also do readings, so if you want to look at what is ahead for you, especially with this solar eclipse coming up, then there's a link to my schedule in the description, and I will see you in the next video.